All right, team. We are back in the Fireside PM podcast. I've got a former YouTube colleague, Ben Grubbs, with me. Ben's been doing a lot of things, including helping raise tens of millions of dollars for different creator startups. Welcome to the show, Ben. So excited to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yeah. Well, you weren't born at YouTube, so let's give folks a little bit of background about your kind of high-level career arc and what you're up to these days.
Sure. So I started my career in Singapore, working at Yahoo. Went out initially as a summer intern in the summer of 2000, and I was interested in getting some experience kind of abroad. And my school had a program actually in Singapore, but they were going to place me either in a bank or a government statutory board, which I didn't have interest in either of those. And can I utilize the program and the housing and all of that, but I'll go place myself. And so I wanted to get experience, working for an internet company, and Yahoo was a big internet company at the time, and figured I'd just start at the top. And so cold called them, and they never had an intern back then in that office. So I was there first, and it made a good impression, and that led to an offer to come work full time. And so I left school early, went back for my fall semester, and then I came back to Singapore in Jan of 01 to lead the development of Yahoo Broadcast. And I had experience when I was growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area and broadcast journalism, and worked in live sports TV, and did radio reporting on KMBR, and wrote for the Alamo newspaper group. But I think it was more the TV kind of production background. And so I was like, okay, it's that, but now on the internet, which at that time, and especially in that region, there weren't a lot of people with that experience. And they took a chance on me, just being the age I was and with the experience I could have had. And I kind of figured I'll spend a year out there and then come back to the US, and end up coming back after 15 years with the wife and 3 kids.
You were out there for 15 years. Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
I went out there with 3 bags and came back with a wife and 3 kids.
That's funny.
But my wife and I met at Yahoo, and then so I went from Yahoo to eBay, led marketing and comms for eBay first in Southeast Asia, then moved to Hong Kong and led marketing and communications there. And we had a big focus around cross-border trade and working with young kind of 20-something power sellers that were some of the most prolific and high-value sellers in the whole platform in the world. And so we probably learned more from them than they did from us, to be honest, and seeing how people are kind of building a brand and a business on top of a platform. And then I had an opportunity to go work at Turner Broadcasting, stayed in Hong Kong, led digital entertainment across the Asia region, bit of a focus more around gaming. And we didn't say metaverse back then, but we were building out online community virtual worlds around IP from the Time Warner kind of ecosystem. And then then I got the offer to join Google in 2012. And so moved back to Singapore, joined so in the YouTube org, and basically focus on marketing YouTube and helping to grow the creator ecosystem across the Asia region. And then we had some limited kind of consumer marketing. It was more focused around Japan and India in the first year. And then I developed a program called YouTube Fan Fest that still runs today. And so started that in early 2013. A live event program that was kind of a showcase of some of the top creators on the platform, and looking at that as like a market catalyst for the marketing trade and getting marketers and agencies more aware and educated that YouTube was beyond dogs or cats on skateboards, as they would say, and that there was content as good, if not better, than what you would find on a lot of at least cable television, and in some cases local linear TV. The stuff you would find on YouTube was, I would say, is actually as good, if not better. And so that was that program. And then I shifted into the content org later in 2013. And so when Salar was the CEO of YouTube, and he had this push around nutritious content and balancing the delicious content of YouTube, which was
delicious and nutritious.
Yeah, so I was leading the nutrition across the Asia region, which meant education, news, and then I was part of the team that helped build and launch YouTube Kids. So worked with Baljeet, Adam on that, and Shimrit and others on the original kind of product launch for the US. And then we had a content budget to go produce original content for the US launch. But when it came away from that kickoff planning meeting, I was thinking, no one ever said actually where the content has to come from. And so I went back to my team and I said, hey, the quicker we are to go work with our partners and shape ideas for original programs and bring it to Greenlight, the more of that budget we're going to get. And we ended up, I think, getting 7 shows greenlit from the Asia region for the US launch.
Wow.
One of those was the first to win an Emmy for original content at YouTube. Developed with a partner in Australia. It was the Fruit Ninja Frenzy Force. So a series adaptation of the mobile game. So it was there pairing kind of native YouTube creator channels with writers, producers here in LA. This is before YouTube Originals team existed. So we were still in the content org. And then I got asked to get the opportunity to move to the US in 2015. I had a global role managing the top creator partnerships team. And so that was, then beyond just nutritious content, but all the top 500 or so kind of creators in the platform at that time. And, got me for the first time in my career, then actually working in the US, like post-college. And then more exposure in Latin America and EMEA markets. That was good. So that gave me a broader view of just the global landscape and the ecosystem and kind of seeing some of the opportunities, but also the challenges. And I had people in my ear, actually before I moved to the US, but were like, when are you going to go do your own thing? Like, why do you keep working in corporate? And I remember thinking, I was like, I don't see anything wrong with what I'm doing. I actually kind of enjoyed, and I liked actually being at these platforms and what kind of came with it. But then there were times when it was like, what if I was not in this like big mothership? You can kind of go build, outside of that. And it was like, I had no experience doing that in my career. And so that was interesting, intriguing, but also maybe somewhat daunting. And, but what eased that was then interfacing with some investors. And I was talking with 2 more actively. And, they said, if I ever thought about leaving corporate, they would back me. And I thought, like, all right, there's no company I'm dying to go and start, but I like this space. And if I have a vehicle by which I can work with many creators, maybe even be involved in like multiple companies, okay, that's interesting to me. And what I was then thinking was, I don't want to be a VC because most creators I would talk to, no one ever asked me, can you introduce me to a VC? Like, no one wants to meet him. Like, why do I want to be one? And so I was just thinking more of like, how do I have a vehicle that has capital committed to it and can go work with people that I see, people you just enjoy being around. And in some cases, it's help incubate and ideate together. Or in other cases, it's buy into their idea and vision and support them. So it was like, can I do a mixture of both? And that's what eventually led me to leave Google in 2018. And then I set up a kind of a holding company venture group that was backed by a family office based out of Europe that I got to know through one of their portfolio companies. We had worked together around YouTube Kids and co-invested on some of those original series. So that's then was like, now I'm down this like venture path. And so I've been down that path, since I left Google. And then I split with that family. And then 2021 set up my own vehicle, Creator Capital. And so I've been using that to kind of manage activity I have around investment or startup incubation or advisory. And all around the online video creator ecosystem, but across different lanes of like I kind of put it into themes of like future of entertainment, future of commerce, future of sport, and future of work. So that's kind of been the journey.
I love it. There was a time in, I want to say 2021, where like creator economy was white hot. And I remember getting like headhunter emails every other day about some hot creator economy startup that was looking for, CPO or something like that. And they were all raising big money. And then, there was a pullback. I think even before the AI revolution, there was just sort of like it didn't seem like anyone could really figure out how to get a big unicorn exit in the creator economy. What was your read at that time? Were you thinking, hey, like I'm at the beginning of like the next gold rush, or were you concerned about how enthusiastic people were? Like, what was your perspective?
So I think going back to maybe like 2015 when I moved to the U.S., I was observing how creators who would grow on YouTube would start to want to leave their multi-channel network relationship,
Mm-hmm.
And then would go independent, and then would want more of a direct relationship with my team. And there was only so many creators that partner managers at YouTube could reasonably interface with, and so we had this account ratio. So it's like one partner manager to 12 creators or 15 creators. And we used to talk about this a bit of like, how effective can you be with more than a dozen or more than 15? And so I mentioned before that I think the portfolio globally was like 500. And I remember in one planning session that we were looking at the metrics that would qualify someone for top creator kind of partnership. And that number was closer to 5,000. And so then I talked with a colleague who was managing the next tier. And I said, hey, so just, are you going to be able to pick up these 4,500? And she was like, no, I have 30,000 in my book, and we're pushing them up. And so I was thinking, oh my God, so there's 4,500 people that qualify from a revenue, watch time kind of metric perspective to get this like direct attention, but we don't have the resource to do it. And so it's like, if we can't do it, and then who, right? And if they don't want to work with these multi-channel networks anymore, who? So I was looking at that ecosystem of like, oh, there's got to be a next generation of companies. And so I was first thinking the enterprise layer. And I was also like early in my career when I was at eBay, and I was kind of there. I joined when eBay was like the largest e-commerce company from a GMV perspective, and saw kind of how that space went into like the verticalization of e-commerce. And you had companies that were like, I'm just going to focus on shoes, or like sneakers and Nike. And so you get the marketplaces and on that side. And for eBay, it was like, that's just one category of many. And I was then thinking, oh, is this what's going to happen to YouTube and the verticalization of YouTube? And that can you put product resource and engineering resource against everything? No, you have to prioritize from there. But can other people kind of focus on that side? And then there's also the creators that are kind of doing their things. And again, this third party. So I just saw like that side was interesting. And then also sitting on the inside, I saw how the metrics were growing, and there was an adpocalypse, and there was money. I remember that a significant amount of money that got paused. And I mean, it like over $1 billion. And that never showed up in the Google earnings report. Internally, I know there was a huge concern, but I was like, wow, Google can absorb this. And, then YouTube was as well. And Google never broke out YouTube numbers until the start of 2020. So before that, like if you're on the inside, you kind of knew what was going on. On the outside, no one knew. And I think it was in 2020 when that disclosure started, and it was like, oh, there's all that money going out now with the partner program. Okay, so 55% of that number is getting paid out, and it's growing at this kind of level. Right. So I think that's when more people in the market started waking up to, YouTube hasn't plateaued. No, this is going up and to the right. And then within the ecosystem, you had creators getting bigger and bigger, then saying, okay, yeah, that first generation of that enterprise layer is no longer suitable for me. And I'm now looking for what's next. And that's where I then saw all this startup space of saying, oh, you got a problem? Let me go create the solution. You got a problem? Let me go create this solution. And so it was just that confluence of, I think, the broader market kind of realizing the economic heft of YouTube. And that's when we started talking about this as like the creator economy from that side. So that's kind of what I saw there. And then I think people trying to make sense of like, how do you enter? How do you play? But yeah, what gave me the confidence to even leave in 18 was what I kind of saw from the inside of like, this isn't going anywhere but up. And this is going to be going like that for at least the next decade. So I'll go be part of that ride.
Yeah. Now, a lot of people built companies that had tools for creators and tried to make money by, charging subscriptions to these creators. And I think a lot of founders in their retrospectives would say, well, we kind of learned that a lot of creators don't have that kind of money. And I'm curious, like, what was your assessment of the various startup approaches to, going after this creator opportunity? Because clearly, the platforms have made a lot of money, but it's hard, maybe aside from Patreon, like there aren't that many like huge creator economy tech successes. Am I missing some big ones?
You say outside of the platform, like YouTube or TikTok.
Yeah.
And Linktree, I think, has been in that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yes, I think there was the tools and services side, and so it was like, okay, am I sharing on some of your AdSense revenue from YouTube? If you had that kind of piece, and then you get into the SaaS model, and then charging, and how many creators then are going to go down that path, and so you saw that, or maybe what some folks kind of modeled out and projected on that side that was not really getting, or the reality of that was maybe not kind of to catch up to where they originally had their kind of forecast on that side. But yeah, there was definitely that first wave I saw of more enterprise tool services companies, and maybe in some way or in some cases too many of them. And so then you're, as like from an investor lens, it's you're placing bets, and you're hoping you're placing the bet on the right company and team, within that space. What I used to also think about was, is this something that YouTube will just productize, or Facebook will productize, or TikTok will productize? So how defensible is the thing that this company team is doing? And sometimes I would ask actually former colleagues, YouTube was like, is this still in the product roadmap? I kind of remember it was. Like, yeah, and I'm like, how far down the list? And they're like, it's pretty far down. I'm like, all right, then that's like a 2-year runway. And I would talk to the founder, like, you guys got 2 years, and get in, prove yourself out, and get some traction. The other thing I would kind of look at was, is that tool service or with the creators, because many were then becoming more multi-platform. And so I was thinking, like, okay, even if YouTube goes and productizes this and builds it, it's only as good as you use the YouTube platform for that. But maybe what the creator wants is not something that's all stuck to just YouTube, but they want it to move across Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. And then I was thinking, like, okay, then that company, has a place, and is not probably going to get, just won't get disrupted, on that side. So yeah, I think it was a bit of that, and just trying to work through, how are you also kind of growing your adoption. And then I would kind of see there's many different sizes and shapes of creators, and so companies then would work with many creators, but in a YouTube kind of like if there's like a tier 1 is like your top creator, I would meet some startups and they were dealing with like tier 5, tier 6. So they have a lot of people using it, but then people who are just like earlier on in their journey, not making a lot of money, not actually in a place to actually pay much for that service. And then the guys at the top who are actually more small, medium, going upon large enterprises are like not using it. Like, so what's going on there? Why is there not a connect? Like, it's not that they don't have actually a need, they do. So why is this not servicing? And in some cases, the founders had no connect to those creators at all. Or you would DM them, and then it's like they're not paying attention to their DMs. So,
yeah, Ben, I would imagine there were probably few $100 million of venture money that was put into a variety of different creator bets, like from 21 to 22 or something like that. Do you agree that it was a bit of a bust, or it sounds like maybe you're a little more kind of optimistic about that vintage?
No, I wouldn't do a blanket statement and say like, it's a bust. I think from that side, and if I just actually look at my own kind of portfolio, there's a number of companies who managed to get to profitability, and have been able to kind of continue to grow, on that side, and are not like out seeking more equity financing rounds, or if they are, it's only going to come when they have a very clear objective and kind of need for that. And then there's some others that didn't get to that point. They built something, they had some traction in some way that would seem to be of value to someone else, and then they end up getting acquired. So I've seen the mix, and then there's also, I had one case of a business that came into early, ended up got some early traction, raised a lot of money, like tens of millions of dollars, and they got traction with a segment of the creator ecosystem that was not what they ever designed it for. And they decided, I'd rather shut the whole thing down and not let this segment actually use my product than continue. And they did shut down, and they distributed back the cash they had on hand. It was a lot of cash they had on hand. And I was like, oh, all right. So I've seen a mixture of results from that side, but I want to broad brush it and say, no, it was a bust.
Right. Well, would it be fair to say that there hasn't been like a breakout unicorn exit, right?
Well, okay. So I'm thinking if we talk like software driven or just like in the ecosystem, because like one, I think from a company standpoint, so there's Moonbug, which raised into the 9 figures, and exited. Their exit was in the billions, and at least what's been stated kind of publicly on that side. I think there is a mixture of what is paid out at close and what's earn out, but total, the enterprise value attached to that business was in the billions. On that side. So there's cases like that.
Yeah. What do you think they got right? Like, what was their key insight that helped them have such a outsized win?
I think early on, I think you see this with a lot of like creators in the YouTube space is, it's an individual kind of effort. You start off and do your thing, you make a bunch of mistakes, then you get the next creator like right over there who's doing their own thing, also making mistakes. On that side, it's like, is there some benefit to kind of learn from each other? Then in the space of animation, there's ways to gain efficiencies and where you can centralize, effort, where things are actually kind of produced, how they're kind of produced, on that side. So front end, the user interface look very different characters, different designs. Back end architecture, you can centralize and streamline that. You could get a lot of margin improvement, I would say, on that side, as well. Then when you start to actually, build brand, build IP, build engagement around that brand and IP, you can commercialize that not only from like YouTube and AdSense, but in a case of, say, kids content, consumer products. But again, is that something you want 10 creators all individually trying to figure out? Or do you want to have a group that does it on behalf of 10 creators and IP? So that was, at a very high level, what I kind of saw what was kind of going on there. And then enabling kind of creators that had found their way, found some footing on the platform, but like could go to that next, level, no idea how to get there. And so, yeah, I love someone else kind of come in with some experience and know-how to do that. That's what that company, I think, was providing to some of those creators, and they did that in a number of different ways, to where the revenue and profits could justify kind of the first investment, but second, the exit that they actually had.
Yeah, super interesting. I mean, I think it's also not entirely like hey, I built some picks and shovels for creators. This almost kind of feels like a platform, or they're in the content production business as well. Is that fair? Or I'm not as familiar with them in terms of their product.
I mean, maybe the term I would use is more studio.
Studio, yes.
Yeah. So like, when I worked at Turner Broadcasting, part of Time Warner at the time, so media entertainment company, but it also has like a studio. So you're producing, but you're monetizing through content sales and distribution, content licensing. So you're showing like CoComelon originates on YouTube, but is on Netflix, and there's platform distribution off of YouTube, commercialization of that.
Yeah.
And CoComelon has, a toy line with Jazzware as one of the top toy companies, and you could find their product, at Walmart, at Amazon, and the sales volume of that is substantial.
Yeah, crazy. That's amazing. Now you, Ben, were also, I saw you were involved in the Good Golf Raise. What can you share about, like, what did they figure out that led to their success? And, do you see that approach being a playbook that others will be using going forward? Like, what can you share about that?
Sure. Yeah, there definitely is a playbook. And so I think at the core for that business, and the way I kind of view it is, at the core, there is a brand, and there is a company and a business, and there is a kind of a vision and a direction, and there's an entrepreneur and a leader kind of guiding that. Now there's creators that you watch and engage with on the YouTube channel, but there is a foundation that I see more often, actually, just with a media or commerce kind of business. And so I think over the years, there's a lot of creators. Like when I joined in 2012, and I was meeting people that started uploading to YouTube in like 2006, and I would ask, about their origin story. And what I would hear a lot was like, it was all accidental. Like they were making home videos, or they had some content for like a trade show.
Yeah.
And YouTube was just the easy place to upload video and share it. And they check back on that channel or video 6 months later, and they're like, wow, there's a lot of views, likes, and more importantly, comments. And then reading the comments, people were like, I like this, and can you upload more of that? And it's like, oh, okay, maybe I will. And then you do that, partner program comes into place, AdSense revenue becomes more substantial. People then go from hobby to then like part-time to full-time. So you saw, and it's like, okay, now how do I turn this into a career? Now how do I sustain this career? So it's like that whole kind of journey. And I think if you're, good, when that started in 2020. So by that point, like there's a lot of things that are now established in the space. Like when I joined, I mean, there was a notion of creators that it's like, oh, if you have a sponsor in your video and promote it, you're selling out. And you're going to get flack from your audience, and they're going to tune out because you went and talked about a brand sponsor. And like what's only allowed is actually having YouTube run pre-roll ads. And people got over that. Or, there's a phase when it just wasn't commonplace to even promote your own product or service or your like merchandise line. That was just not like so widespread. And it was like, oh, I don't want to sell to my audience. Was that I would hear that.
Yeah.
People got over that. And so I think in a bunch of different cases, you could find like the creative person or the creator originating things and then trying to figure out sustainability. And then that side is maybe like how to maybe turn what they're doing into a business. Okay, so sharing all that. So then I go back to like Good, and the way I saw it was like, oh, there was a vision at the start of establishing kind of a brand and a business, and a way into the market was producing like engaging content on YouTube that then grows awareness and consideration for that brand, that then will translate into not merchandise, but apparel and consumer goods. And I was there of merch being the things you might just buy online and lower kind of quality, to then apparel is sold at retail, and a bit more kind of craft and care like into the product. So, the co-founder and CEO of Good, Matt Kendrick, like this is not his first company. Like he was involved actually with athletes and folks in outdoor sport early on in his career, had a merchandise business. So got familiarity there. And then he had a previous company before Good, that was in fishing entertainment called Googan Squad. And so that started in 2015. And he was able to, with a collection of people producing content, actually build awareness and consideration for the Googan branded product. And that translated really well at offline retail at Dick's Sporting Goods. So well that then he was able to sell that company in 2020 to a private equity firm. And then it was like repeating the playbook, by the end of the year with now golf and Good. So bass fishing, a little bit more limited market scope than to golf, which is more global, from that side. So when I was kind of looking at the business, it was like, yeah, this is a business. It's definitely infused and there's a strong kind of creator element, but it's not like maybe like those other examples I was sharing. It's not so creator led to them where they were trying to figure out how to make it into a business. It's like, no, there is a foundation there. I can get comfortable with that. Other people that then I would talk to can get, wrap their head around it. And so some, I think that like came into it and viewed it as a consumer goods company, were then like, how in the heck are they doing what they're doing at the margins they are? And it's like, well, some other consumer goods company or D2C business is spending a lot of money on paid marketing, and Good Goods they're getting paid for their marketing by YouTube on their YouTube channel. It monetizes extremely well. You go the other side and you look as a media business, and it's like, again, how do they then generate the revenue that they do? And it's like, well, they don't limit their monetization to ads and content sales. They, are actually looking at the audience that they attract, and it's like, are we a marketing medium for some other company's brand, or do we have our own product to then put in front of our audience and have them go consume? And so, not that they're going to be trying to tackle every single product category, but there's some, and apparel is like where it starts, and it's gone into golf accessories and equipment and other things that there's now a good brand of product that they can drive awareness through the content that they own. They don't have to pay anyone else for that marketing. It's there. So that's the business. And I think where when I just got introduced and I saw it, I was like, wow, this is so different from a lot of other kind of creator companies that I've kind of been around, or just creators, their own like personal business. Just got to know Matt more and more, and really, really liked him and what he was doing. And I thought he was a really positive force for this creator ecosystem. And I'm all for, when I find people like that, it's like, I want the whole ecosystem to grow and benefit. And it's like you try to find those good people, and I just generally want to go and prop them up. And so it was like, yeah, what are the things that you need? And I had other things going on, but it was like I kind of just want to get in your corner and help you. And so that was it. And it just I caught the bug, and I'm going to be on this journey. So
I love it. Yeah, it's so interesting how I think there has been a conventional narrative that the best YouTubers are the ones who started in their living room about a passion that they had, and it was like this accidental thing that turned into a big business. It sounds like, and then they would layer on monetization after that. It sounded like in Good case, there was a kind of business strategy in mind to begin with. It wasn't like, oh, we just love golf. How might we make money off this channel? It was like, no, we're going to build a golf kind of, consumer business, and then we're going to acquire customers with great content. And I agree with you. Like, if you said that to me in like 2016, 2017, I'd be like, oh, well, they're kind of like, that's not like authentic YouTuber, but it worked out okay for them.
No, it definitely has.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's, it's a company that was more or less bootstrapped.
Mm-hmm.
They never really raised outside financing to kind of grow, and have run a really efficient operation since formation. And I think the other side there is just looking at the audience that they kind of attract. It's a pretty high value audience, and take the signal kind of from Google pretty well, and how Google is engineered to kind of put the right ad in front of the right consumer at the right time, and just seeing how well that channel monetizes kind of shows that like there's a good audience viewing that content. And like, not all, I knew that when I worked at YouTube, is like not all views are equal. And some views that you want more than others. And Good is in a good position, and I would say it is in front of a really value kind of segment of consumers, and not just me saying it, it's like the data says it.
Yep.
Very, very
cool. That coincidentally, I worked on a transaction earlier this year where a company acquired another company for whom that acquisition target, their main source of customers was through their YouTube channel. And it was very similar argument, which is like, look, we don't pay for customer acquisition. They just come to us for the YouTube channel. They really like it, and YouTube does a good job of putting our content in front of people. And then we monetize it after, we sell them this related service. So super cool. I know we're short on time. I wanted to kind of ask you in general, Ben, are there any other interesting trends? Or, we didn't even talk about Mr. Beast. Like, is Mr. Beast a repeatable model, or is he like this Michael Jackson once in a generation outcome?
No, I think there are some elements
that
are kind of repeatable. And so he's like, the company is in this, they've been undergoing a transition for a period of time into like a holding company structure. And so if you're a shareholder in that holding company, you sit across everything. And that's maybe different to, like, there's a number of like YouTube creators, or just creators in general, that could be from TikTok or Instagram or whatnot, that might have some business venture, and then raise money for that business venture. But you're a shareholder only in that particular business venture. And then that creator, though, is doing a whole host of other things. So then what you maybe have to be thinking about is like, how much of that person's time goes into that business venture? And because all I have exposure is to that. And is that like 10%, 20%, or is it 80%? And it's a question that's worthwhile kind of asking and getting an answer to. Then what Jimmy's kind of doing is he has this holding company. And so if you're a shareholder, you participate in everything. Just like you become a shareholder in Alphabet, and you're across YouTube, you're across Google Maps, you're across their ads business, anything that Alphabet is actually doing, on that side. And so I think there's arguably maybe some better alignment between the principals in the business and their investor shareholders in that kind of structure. But that's not been the typical path that I've actually seen over the years. Is that, and some of that might be creator led, or some of that might be the representatives, managers, and agents, kind of saying, actually only allow people in on this particular thing. So yeah, that part I think is something that we might see more of going forward, is like the creator having the company itself. I think the other thing though that okay, so you have the creator and let's say a creative person, talent, and whatnot, and there's a legacy of they then get managers or agents, and you hear in the past a lot where it's like have them just focus on their creativity and they're making content. I'm going to go do all the business stuff, or the creator kind of says, yeah, I don't want to deal with the business stuff. I'm just going to kind of focus on making videos. Then you start to have the company, and so then it's like, okay, who's the head of it? Who's the CEO? So then there's activity around hiring like a COO, chief operating officer, and so it's like, okay, someone to run like the day-to-day and the business operations, but ultimately the creator is still the CEO. Jimmy's actually not the CEO of his company. He's chairman, but he has a CEO who's actually running the holding company. And that person comes from a corporate public markets background, who then is now hiring and employing people with also corporate institutional backgrounds. And there's a probably more, I guess, company to corporation kind of phase I see kind of going on there. That's also made me think about, if you're the CEO, when there's legal matters, HR matters, all this goes up to the CEO. So how much does the creator actually want to be the one dealing with all of this? Or do you want a CEO, on that side? Like, when we worked at Google, there was the phase where Larry and Sergey, hand over, and there was Eric Schmidt for a phase, but then you have Sundar, right? So it's not that they're not involved in the business. It's not that they don't have any like shareholder and like economic say even from like the board. No, they're there, but there is a person who is also a lot of other corporate matters flow up to and have to be responsible for that. And so does the creator actually want all of that, or is there better on that side? So that's something I've kind of observed and kind of seen. And I mean, a lot of people follow him for content reasons, but I think there's another side of just watching the structure side, and like, can that be replicated? Yes. His model of like blitz scaling, and reinvesting almost like all dollars that come in on advertising and sponsorship right back into content to blitz scale and just be the top most subscribed channel. And it's like he's here, and number like this set is like, I don't want 1 and 2, I want 1 and 2, right? From that side, he's just at a whole other kind of level. Can other people do that? But yes, but then that is the investment commitment. He's not making money. Then there's a lot of creators who then invest in the property and show off their great new homes to their fan base and say, hey, look what you helped me go off and buy. Not that I'm inviting you over to my house, but like, I'll let you know as like a viewer and subscriber, this is what I was able to attain. We've never seen Jimmy's house. We've seen the room or the apartment in his studio that he sleeps in, right? But he's also operated, interestingly, a different way to other people who then have attained, economic kind of freedom. He's not showing that aspect. But I think a lot of it has just been a reinvestment, almost like a Jeff Bezos Amazon, of keep margins thin, and just grow market share. Then you get to this tipping point, and your market share is so great. Now you could layer on or you can layer in and turn on monetization. And this is what I see them doing.
Yeah. Well, now he can buy 100 mansions. So he's playing the long game, and it seems like it's worked out for him pretty well. Before I let you go, Ben, I got to ask you, since it's 2025, what do you think there's going to be a good, bad, or some other impact on the creator economy due to AI? Like, I've heard people say, oh, this is going to be amazing. People can create all kinds of content now, and other people saying, well, oh no, like, the AI will be a better creator than a human can, and we'll all be replaced.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what side or what lens, then we look at that. I mean, there's definitely things on productivity and in productivity enhancements. On the animation side, I remember talking with a company last year, and then they were showing me their product, and it was like real time, kind of taking an outline sketch of a character, and it was real time filling in and advancing to almost like what a finished model would actually be for that character in 2D or 3D. And I was just watching this being done in real time. And so then I was asking, like, okay, so where do you go from here? And the decision was, now you can make this thing in, let's say, half the time that it would have otherwise taken. So do you now charge less because it took you less time, or do you charge the same and you now get more margin? And so on one side you can produce more, on another side is you can enhance margins. So I think there's like a production kind of side of things that there's some really interesting kind of efficiency gains. I think one other side too is what one individual may be capable of doing that was maybe a team kind of before. So like the democratization of content and access and what that kind of affords is interesting, right? And so you have potentially more participants, on that side. And then, on the consumer piece, where do people kind of choose to put their time? And you're going to have winners. If you have winners, then do you then have losers? Is this zero sum? Or, there's only so much time in the day to spend on like media and entertainment. And so if they choose to spend it there, because, I've had chats with some folks here in LA, just talking about like the third party kind of Nielsen stats about the rise of YouTube and share on television sets and how it's the most watched kind of platform. And then you look at YouTube by and large, it's you have to deficit finance. So I fund my content and I upload it to YouTube and I get paid after. Whereas, a lot of legacy media companies here, you get commission, or they're paying you to go make something. And so more consumers choose to spend time on YouTube. There's more of the market then become this model of deficit financing. So that's, then not so great maybe for production companies and studios that rely on those commissions that are more B2B than B2C. I think on this like AI front, again, if consumers apply more or spend more of their time on that kind of content, then someone else who is not utilizing the technology or tools and services is then losing out. So I don't know. I don't know if that helps, but I kind of look. I look at it from a few different kind of lenses. Overall, I don't look at it as like this is leading to doom and gloom. I think it's just seen like a lot of how I try to spend my career is you want to be on the side of the disruptor, and like I don't want to play defense and wait to get disrupted. So I'm kind of looking at the space too, and it's like how to get into it, learn more about it, and to test and learn and see how you can utilize it to your benefit versus just be beholden to some previous kind of way. And then in a few years, it's not going to be good for you.
Yeah, I have my youngest son is into filmmaking, and I have mixed feelings about it because I'm like, well, I don't know what that's going to look like, 5-10 years from now. On the other hand, I also feel like because of new AI tools, he's going to be able to create anything that he can think of. and you know, kind of have unlimited editing capabilities with just his voice. And I know a lot of creators, video editing is like their least favorite thing. And so I'm optimistic too. I think there'll be more content for sure. And then, but the power law will still apply. And some of them are going to be breakthrough work. And, you know, but the average quality probably should go up because anytime you have more competition, generally that's good for the consumer. So hopefully we'll see some cool stuff, and we'll have to have you back on in a year and kind of see what it looks like.
That'd be good. I mean, I just quickly, I was just thinking on some productions I was involved in over the last like few years, and there's one I went to, and there was like 50 people on set, and I was like looking around, and like half of them I would think like, what are you doing? Like I was the executive producer, and so sitting across the budget, and I was like, how much of this budget is going into people that like they don't seem to be doing anything? And they're just warm bodies. And I actually thought one of the producers was doing it for optics, and if you put a lot of people there, it makes it seem bigger production, more expensive, and like look at all these working out. I didn't view it from that lens, and I thought like I could do it with half of these people, and we're still getting the same output. And how much of your actual budget and line item was going into that? And so that's just again the thing. So look, if you exist for a job because you need that 50-person crew, tough, right? But if you're the one kind of producing, you can find ways to shrink that thing down in half, still get the same output, same quality, maybe get it faster, better cost, and you have a better path to profitability. Repeat that. That's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah. It's analogous to people predicting, you know, the 6-person software unicorn is you know, that time is coming. Maybe it's already here, and maybe there'll be the 6-person blockbuster movie production that doesn't require armies and armies of people, and that'll be good for us because I think we'll see a lot more content out there, and the best stuff will still be awesome. And the cost to produce it will probably be a fraction of what it might have been cost to put together, like Titanic.
Yeah, for sure.
Exciting.
All good. All right. This has been fun, Tom.
Ben, it's been a pleasure. I put a link to your LinkedIn in the description. Is that the best way people can kind of stay tuned on what you're working on, or are there other places they should look?
That's good. I need to get back to posting more often. I've been an infrequent poster on LinkedIn over the last year, but just been more heads down and building and raising capital for others. So, but yes, I think that's generally the platform, and I'll look to share more of things that I'm kind of across in the coming months.
Love it. All right, Ben, we'll have you back on, and have a great rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Take care. All right. That was Ben Grubbs. Great guy. Let me give you my 3 takeaways, and then I've got to jump to a coaching call in 5 minutes. Okay. Takeaway 1 is how interesting it is that there are a raft of these creator economy picks and shovels startups who, in a traditional market, you would think, well, the people selling the picks and shovels are the ones that make the money, not the ones going for the kind of low probability win. But I don't think that turned out. I think you now in the creator economy, you have YouTube, TikTok, Meta, Twitch. There's a few platforms. They're doing great. And then you have the creators, and the big creators, the successful ones like Good and Mr. Beast and etc. They're doing great. But all the people out there who are making tools to help creators with their payroll or with their analytics or with even video editing, like, I don't know. They haven't crushed it. And I think part of it is because they need to sell into the 100% of creators, but we all know that only like a small percent of them actually make real money, and they can't just, so that the numbers don't add up for them. They, I suppose you could say, well, why don't they make tools for the whales, the equivalent of like enterprise software for mega creators? I don't know. Yeah, maybe that's a category. I haven't thought about it. So that's observation 1. Observation 2 is another inversion of conventional wisdom, where it was always the common assumption that the best successful YouTubers were the authentic ones who just loved their community and their area. And, you've got these examples, like, let's say with Good, where I'm sure they love golf. I'm sure of it. But they went into it, like, it sounds like, with a very clear business strategy and thinking of their YouTube channel as a way to build a community of shoppers to buy stuff from Good, branded Good, and so that was super interesting. And I think the third thing is this conversation around AI. People said when CGI came out, like, it would destroy film. Now we kind of assume there's CGI everywhere. It's kind of a rarity if it doesn't have it. So will AI produced characters be the same way we look at CGI produced, like, explosions and action movies and things like that? Possibly. I mean, we watch animated films. I mean, it's not like you need to see humans. So yeah, I think the one thing that I would predict is that the power law will still play, that you might have 1,000 times more content out there because of AI, but people do tend to like certain things that are just 1% better than everything else, and that becomes the thing. And Ben and I took an exec ed class years ago at HBS that was about the business of entertainment. And you look at the data, there's always just a very few movies that produce all of the profits for a studio. And I think it's similar across media types. So now, what will be the difference between those blockbuster AI produced content and the rest of the AI produced content or augmented content? Who knows? I think you're still going to want a good story that's unique, that moves people. Call me old fashioned, but you could use AI to create that. But at the end of the day, like, that's been true since, like, Shakespeare wrote his first poem, right? So that hasn't really changed much. But let me know in the comments what you all think. It's kind of exciting. Like, you see more and more people consuming, independent creator content, and you see more money going into it. It stands to reason that more money will be made from that. And who will win? Right now, we know the top creators win. We know the platforms win. We know the picks and shovels have not found a way to win. Will that really change? I don't know. If I were a betting man, I would say, maybe not. I think it might hold up. I'm not sure if I would want to be in the picks and shovels business. Maybe the closest would be to aggregate creators and then maybe compete against the big platforms, but that's a big uphill battle. But you never know. Let me know in the comments what you all think, and I'll see you next time. Let's get back to work.